Braga here, and welcome to another Pixels Refreshed. Today we're going to be looking into Triangle Strategy that was just shown in the Nintendo Direct. This is one that I'm pretty excited for. I love strategy games. It looks to be mixing something like Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy Tactics. Sounds like a good mix to me. It looks to be done in a very similar vein to Octopath Travelers. Now, Octopath used pixel art characters and elements in the foreground with 3D environments and really low poly 3D environments with super low res textures that are nearest neighbor filtered so that they looked like pixel art in a way. And they used that to make really cohesive scenes. And then they tied it all together with modern post processing and effects. And I think Triangle Strategy is going for a very similar aesthetic. So why don't we take a look at the newest trailer and see what we can see?
Utility, morality, or liberty.
Cool stuff.
In Triangle Strategy, a fire.
Okay, so right away, I'm getting the visual indicators. I'm pretty sure this is done in Unreal Engine, like Octopath was. It's doing specific things with its post-processing. It's you got ambient occlusion, so you see how these areas are getting cast into shadow. So what ambient occlusion is you see it typically in corners of a building, or even anywhere where you make anything intersect. You'll see it right in between my arms here. You see that pack of shadow that appears in those areas where light can't bounce freely. So light kind of runs out of bounces before it gets into those nooks and crannies. So we do effects that add darkness, which is a bit different. When you use ray tracing, you kind of get ambient occlusion for free if you did full scene-based ray tracing. But if you're not full-based ray tracing, you have to basically darken those areas instead. So it's kind of like a reverse method of doing those things. So you're seeing a lot of ambient occlusion in these kind of areas here where the buildings meet the ground or come in contact with this cliffside here or along here. You're seeing a lot of, the image is a little soft overall. Most of the animation, this is similar to Octopath. The character animation was somewhat limited, but the effect animations were really robust, and they use that to cover up. So it's like the characters, for instance, they don't have idle animations here. No one has idle animations. They just have set frames. I would guess this is a 720p output, and the native pixel art would probably be 640 by 360 would be my guess.
Where will your conviction guide you?
Yeah, no animation in any of those scenes. So it's mostly just still characters with set camera angles. I would say the aesthetic on the characters is a very, and this is one area that Octopath did really well. They both went for the Final Fantasy VI aesthetic. This is a little bit more Final Fantasy Tactics for their characters, so they're trying to give those people that feel that they haven't really had since like Ogre Battle or Tactics Ogre or Final Fantasy Tactics. Because I'm getting much more of that kind of feel from this than I am getting from Fire Emblem. So we have like particles blowing across the scene. We have color grading. So color grading you can tell because this yellow light is encompassing all of the assets. You have this like warm yellow red light and it's coming into your characters. It's coming over your environments. Like this wood is much more yellow red than you would. So, and they're using a vignette, which is darkening the corners of the screen. Now, I would say that they're a little bit heavy-handed with both their depth of field and their vignette because you're getting blur in the foreground and you're getting it in the distant background. And that's an area that some people could maybe be bothered by. So I would have not probably gone as heavy-handed in that. Cool. I like these like subtle camera movements. It makes it seem like you've set up the diorama and then
are now available on Nintendo.com.
Splendid.
It's pretty sweet.
Triangle Strategy will launch on Nintendo Switch March 4th, 2022.
Cool. So yeah, they have modern places that they're using their pipeline. So all of their particle effects and their effects are modern, right? They're just using a modern Unreal-based particle system, but they have, they're using shaders on their water. So you can see, obviously, it's modifying the ground here as it goes below it. And it's reflecting, I'm guessing it's probably using screen-spaced reflections.
Splendid.
Triangle Strategy will launch on Nintendo Switch March 4th.
Awesome. Yeah, overall, I like the aesthetic look. They're doing a smart use of limited animation, probably because they they wanted a lot more characters. So they do seem to have battle idols. So you can see here in battle, the characters have a slight up and down animation that they do over and over again. It's very basic. You can tell that it's basic because the head's moving at the same rate as the characters as it goes up. So typically whenever I did idle animations for things, I delay the first couple frames. So you can see the head has a slight delay as it comes up or it goes down. And same with something like this. So there's a slight delay between each of the parts in these animations. And that's typically what you want to do when you want to emphasize different animations, is you delay the parts to add that sense. But what I'm seeing in the Project Triangle trailer is that it's even more simple than that. The characters only move up and down. It's like the head is not delayed that much. So yeah, it seems to have kind of like very basic animations. Oh, and it's really focusing on modern effects. So it's like what it's using to unify its scenes is it's combining the low poly sprites. So the environments are actually 3Ds. They're on 3D meshes. They're just very low poly. And then, so it's low poly with low resolution textures filtered up. And then they do, they unify it all with their post-processing stack. And that's how they would achieve the game look like this. So that they try to create an art style that matches between the characters and the environments, and what really does a good job of combining them all. And this is an era where PlayStation 1 games suffered, because PlayStation 1 games couldn't do that. They couldn't unify their scenes in the same way. Whereas, so oftentimes they did the same thing they're doing here. They'd have a 3D environment, even PS2 with Disgaea or things like that. They would have a 3D environment and they'd have 2D pictures of the characters essentially, but they didn't have the modern post-processing and effects pipeline to unify all of those elements together. So, and really nice particles coming off of the grass and stuff here. But anyways, that is Project Triangle, or Triangle Strategy, now just Triangle Strategy. I'm really excited for this, but I love tactics games, so I'm definitely going to be looking at this when it comes out. And yeah, I think they've done a pretty good job with the art style. It's a hard thing to do when you make a game like this. You're trying to you have a limited budget. You probably want as many characters as humanly possible, so you have to go more limited on animation. That's really the best option, because all of the particle effects and stuff can be shared. And what a lot of people don't get, because sometimes when people talk about 2D versus 3D, and they'll talk about 2D being the lazy way to go, there's a lot of places where 3D scales better than 2D, especially when you're doing lots of characters, because you can do shared animations or things like that. Like I guarantee in Fire Emblem Three Houses, the vast majority of the characters are using, like, all of the job classes have a shared rig with shared animations with maybe a few unique animations per each. But when you're doing it with pixel art or 2D, you have to, unless you're using some kind of spine system, which would look much wonkier, to be honest. Unless if you're drawing your frames traditionally, it actually scales worse. So it might be faster to do it that way if you were doing 10 characters, but if you're doing 100, it's actually maybe slower doing it in pixel art than doing it in 3D. And it's a hard thing, especially if you go very robust with animation. So they've chosen to go with a lot of characters, limited animation, and have a lot of it being the post-processing and particles that unite it. So, I mean, it's the right choice for this kind of game. Hopefully I get to make a strategy game at some point in time. I'd probably make similar decisions, but I'd still probably go a little bit more over the top with animation. Just as a way for it to stand out, and also because it adds more personality to the characters, which I enjoy. So anyways, those are my thoughts on Triangle Strategy. Super excited for it, looking forward to it, and yeah, I hope you liked the video. If you do, feel free to click subscribe and click the like button. Anyways, I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.